All right, everybody, good afternoon. It's Randy Byrd. It's June 19th. I'm trying to get in July already. June 19th, 2023. This is the weekly coaching call on Mondays. Every Monday, 12 to 12:30, I talk about coaching topics, things that might help you in your business production-wise in coaching. This is all about production, and it's all about what can we do to do better in our real estate businesses. And what I thought I'd do today is I'd like to go over the preparation for a multi-million-dollar listing. I have a couple $1 million listing appointment this afternoon here in the Willamette Valley of Oregon. It's up near Woodburn. And what kind of goes into this, right? So the very first things that I do when we look at this is focus on the basics of the property. How do we go about the basics of the property? And rather than show my screen, I'm just going to go over these things and then you could look at this. But the very first thing I do, believe it or not, is Zillow it. It's one of the most highly traffic real estate traffic sites in the United States, moving up into the world. And even though it could be a arch nemesis of ours, it actually is a great place to get the basic information very quickly. I do the same thing with agents. When I want to talk to an agent, maybe we're writing an offer on a property, I go to Zillow and see how many sales they have, how long in the business, their website's there, their Facebook's there. Same thing for a property. So when I pulled up this particular property, it was not on the market. So it didn't have a valuation price. It has a lot of acreage, 48 acres. So it's not going to really show up with a zestimate, if you will, but it gave me some basic stuff. And what it does do is it shows you the past history of this property. So I was able to look at when's the last time it was listed, when it was sold really quickly, just literally in a 2-minute search. I just go to Zillow, put in the address, and that's my first step. The second step is to look into a little bit of the detail in the MLS. So I look up the address in the MLS, and you can do that by looking up overall search. I think it's called general search in our MLS. And then at that point, you could just put in the address to it to find out any specifics on that particular property. I saw that's been listed 4 or 5 times since 2006. I can see a little pattern of history with that. And that gets me a little further down the road. What I'm doing is I'm looking for that gut feeling of what this property should be worth before I get into the granular pieces of the CMA, right? So as I'm going through this, it's really about what are the components of this that are lending into what the price will be at. If it was given to me, the seller goes, hey, we want to get this. I'll use that as a reference, but it's really just a reference. So now I've got Zillow. If there's a Zillow Zestimate, by the way, I had a referral to Los Angeles this week. The Zestimate said it was 753,000. I had 6 realtors look at it, gave me, 4 of them gave me their CMA rough, just to drive by CMA, just give me an idea what they thought value was. And it was over 900,000 every agent. So that shows you Zestimate was off by 150,000 in this particular case. So you don't want to lean on that, but it's a great starting point. I knew that it wasn't 400, right? And so then the realtor started validating the fact that it was about a 925 average is what everybody talked about. One guy said 975, one guy said 870. So I got that parameter. So same thing on this property is I'm looking for that really broad parameter. So now I've looked at Zillow, no estimate, no Zestimate there. So now I've gone to the MLS with past sales data. And I could see it sold for a little over $1.2 million, I think it was in 2019. So I've got some frame of reference there. And then I start digging into the tax records and the things about it. Are there liens? Are there other things? Are there maybe permits and different things that have been pulled on the property? So at that point, we're starting to really develop an understanding of what's going on. And so you can see on my page right here, this is the binder that I made for it. And it starts out with just the Zillow and the basic information that they're going to do also. So I don't ever hide behind it. I always front page it, right? And the next thing I did is I did history on it. I did the history of every transaction ever in the MLS on this particular property. So you can see I've got all the way back to 2006 on this property, even though it's built in 1936, we only go back to 2006 with data. The very next thing is all the actives that are in that price range and acreage. So in my case, it's 38 acres. Yeah, 38 acres. So I did 20 to 50 acres, price point between 1 and 2.5 million, kind of gave it a parameter to get into just a rough idea. I want to know every active that is competitive with that particular listing. The next page I did was pendings, only one pending in that price range in the whole area. So that's limited, right? And then I went to solds, and sold, there was 35 solds that fit that parameter in the last 24 months. So I go back 2 years on that kind of specific property. And I went over all the solds, and I looked for the solds to what's going to best match that for my CMA. And as so I'm going through the solds, there was 35. On canceled and expires, there was about 80. Now I'm not going to use those for the CMA, but it's a great idea. Like if I keep seeing properties that are very much like it and they've canceled or expired, I want to definitely talk to the seller about that. We're not looking at it towards numbers, only the solds are going to come up to that. But I had 2 pages of expires and canceleds that I looked through to make sure there's anything that's really a good match, basically. And then I got to, matter of fact, 3 pages of expires. And then at the end of that, I lay out the 5 or 6 comps that seem like they're the closest fit to it. In this particular case, I had 2 actives and 3 solds in the last, just this year in 2023, that I was able to look at to really get a feel for what's going on. The market's changed in the last year. Last year it was screaming and they were getting any price they want. Now the market's adjusted to where it's much different now, right? The market's settled down a lot. The interest rates, all these things have played into it. So now I have the comps and I've had it labeled there. I'm also doing a cloud CMA that have all these in it, but I want to go cloud CMA and then I want to get granular with them about the comps to really get their feedback on what they think. And for instance, one of their comps is twice the size of their house and it's built a lot newer. So we want to talk about that one specifically. It's kind of like a deal killer, right? It's got to sell before yours will sell kind of thing. That will come up in the conversation, that sometimes we've got to let some things get off the MLS and see what they sold for. And also, because he bought it 4 years ago, I also want to find out if they had an appraisal done. If they had an appraisal done, I'd like that appraisal to see where it came in. They may not have shared that with the MLS or with the buyer's agent or anybody else. So that's something that adds a little more value to it as well. All right. I also will do my cloud CMA. I may do a CMA report in the MLS as well. I don't particularly like the MLS CMAs. It's just they're cumbersome, and the cloud CMA is very clean, very nice, and very easy to do. So that's my preference. But it just totally depends. The cloud CMA has a little cost. The MLS is kind of a free version. So then after I get done with all this, I have my statistics of what's going on with the market, kind of the market snapshots, market statistics. That's all in this particular piece. By the way, this is not, I don't leave this with them. This is mine. This is the data to back up my CMA. So let me show you the CMA I did. This is the comparative market analysis. You can see that is much thicker than this, right? It's twice as thick. I think it was 74 pages that I printed in my CMA from Cloud CMA. Very pretty. It has full color pictures. It will go through every property in here with full color pictures. So if they're like, well, what's that one? I can refresh myself with the color pictures. I picked the highest version of the amount of pictures and stuff that I print. It looks like I really prepared a long, long time. That CMA took me probably 15 minutes to do max after I had the MLS numbers off the properties that I researched, right? So then I do this, which is a nice, it's a nice looking, this is the visual presentation of the CMA. They get to keep this. So when I get to the appointment, they get to keep this. So it's part of the package that I will leave with them. The next thing I do is I do this package here that is about me, Oregon Luxury Group, my business card, and it will have all the details. Like it has my website information on there. It has other components. It has my website, Birdhouse team. It also has all the tax info on the property. So I went to the county assessor's office, printed off all the tax info. There's 3 lots. What's the size of them? So I don't get surprised by them telling me something that I should have learned in public records, right? So I go through all that motion. And then if you notice at the back side of this, I'm going to lay this on the table like this, but later I will switch it over to that, which is a listing agreement to sign, right? So I take the listing agreement with me. The commission and the price is not filled out in this yet. They may be looking for that, but it's not filled out because that's a negotiating conversation I want to have with them. I want to talk about what their needs are, what they want to do, and what's the things they want to accomplish before I come up with price. Because if they say, I have to sell, my cousin just became ill, we have to be there in 2 weeks, that's a high motivation to 10. And my sellers are very elderly. So if they're low motivation, if they go, hey, we don't care if it takes a couple of years, that's a much lower motivation. We could push that price. And as long as we're having that discussion, my listing term, how long it is, the commission percentage, all that stuff's negotiable based on those conversations. Okay. So next thing, I'm going to talk about me. I'm going to talk about edifying myself. So one of the things I'm taking is Success Magazine to talk about EXP, my particular company, right? So I want to talk about Success Magazine, EXP Realty. So I'm taking the Success Magazine with me that I could talk about the importance of a company that is a NASDAQ traded company. Nobody else is. I could talk to them about the bandwidth of being in a $3 billion company, the fastest growing company in the history of real estate. All those things are edifying the company that they're choosing. They may not have heard of EXP yet. Then the next thing I do is talk about my marketing. Here's some of the things that I've done. I'm kind of bragging, but this is a Homes and Land magazine that I was on the cover of with a property we sold that was a couple $1 million. So I think this one was listed at 2.2 million or 1 point something million. But I could show a little bit about the ads and what I've done in the past. Now, this is multiple years old. This is 6 years old, probably 7 years old, but it doesn't matter. It's showing the past tense of what we were doing for our clients and what we're capable of doing for them, right? So I'll show them that. I'll take it back with me. I don't leave it. I have multiple copies of this for my listing appointments, but I basically am showing them. I will also highlight multiple sales that I've done that are in the price point. So I've got several sales that were in the 2, 3, and 4 million range that we can show them. Some are on my website as well. And so I want to take them down that journey that we can help them. If you haven't particularly done that, lean on a partner, lean on somebody in your organization, lean on somebody that you can say, hey, my partners and I have done this, right? And then again, I'll take them a couple of my magazines that I've done. Again, I'm kind of showboating right now on purpose because these are the things that I want to show them that I do for advertising and marketing. I doubt other agents are going to be able to show those kind of quality magazines, and I've been doing those for years. So in a nutshell, that's kind of how this procedure goes. As we're progressing, when I get to the house, this size of a house and this age of client, they're in their 80s. Probably going to be a couple hour appointment because we're likely going to look at the land. We're going to look at the house, 3,300 square feet, a lot of get to know them and get to know their story and try to create some common ground and some bonding there. And I'll also ask some qualifying questions to find out what personality they are, right? If they're analytical or if they're drivers. He sounds like a driver. He's followed up with me a couple times to make sure we're on schedule today, which lets me know he might be analytical. So I'll find that out when I get to the house by asking a couple qualifying questions. Like, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I've got all this information for you. How would you like me to go over it? Would you like me to kind of go over it step by step to let you know what's going on with the market and get into your house? Or would you like the bottom line? What are you looking for? And the answer to that will give you a really clear indication of what they're looking at. All right. And then, like I said, as I'm talking to them, once I'm in my presentation and I start talking about my website and where I'm going to position them in my Oregon luxury group and all that stuff, when I'm done with this, I will lay it down with the listing agreement face up on purpose. So I'll go over the document, and then when I'm done, you see the back is the listing agreement. I'll lay that down on purpose so it's catching their attention and they can see that I'm ready to list it today, right? And if they start giving me the the indicators that they're not quite ready yet, that they're just fishing or they're meeting 3 other agents, whatever it is, then I won't give that as much attention. But the reality is I'm going to try and close them 3 or 4 times to going now and trying to overcome those objections that they may have. He was referred to me, so that referral means a lot. And he's mentioned that a couple times, so that, we'll be able to weigh in on that. So kind of a quick overview of that. I'm happy to answer any questions now that you might have about this, but that's a similar process that I go through when I'm prepping. Another component is I always want to search, when you're looking at like a 4,000 square foot house on 10 acres, we typically put ourselves in that parameter when we're looking for searches. I always make sure the last thing I do is a parameter search within 1 mile of that house. I want to know everything that's for sale currently. I might do solds as well, because if he asked me, hey, that one on the corner just sold, do you know anything about it? Well, if it was only 2,000 square feet and didn't hit in my parameters, I wouldn't know anything about it. So I'm going to go, I don't know anything about it. It wasn't in my search. That's usually not a good thing. And the many, many listing appointments I've done over years, that has saved my bacon. I can't tell you how many times, because they go, hey, the one right on the corner sold. And I go, yeah, it doesn't fit with yours, but I looked up at the information on it and I could rip off. It was, only 1,900 square foot. It was a foreclosure. They had a problem with it, whatever it may be. I'll at least have knowledge of that particular property. And you learn one time, right? I had a listing I really wanted, and there was a house 3 doors down with a sign in the yard that I knew nothing about. And I literally couldn't get a hold of my assistant when I drove to the driveway. So when they asked about it, I knew nothing. And that doesn't go well, right? So I always look for that local search parameter just to get a little more knowledge of the particular street, area, whatever it may be. I don't give a lot of attention to schools and all that at this point. Even though it's on past MLSs, I can research it and look it up as I'm at the property. But right now I'm not focused on marketing. I'm not focused on what schools are involved unless they're really popular schools. Like in Reading, there's a couple private schools that are very difficult to get in. You can only get in them if you own a property in that school district, Grant School District, for instance. That's a different marketing strategy that is very powerful. But in rural property, something like this on 40 acres, not going to be such an issue. All right, questions. What comes up for you with what I just laid out? Any questions, any input? Sonia.
Hi. Like I said, I'm driving, and
right.
I'm now trying to get into my house, so I can't see you real well because you're on my little bitty phone. Which document is it that you have the listing agreement attached to on the back?
It's just the things that I take back with me, basically, right? It's my website, it's things about me, it's edification of me or the company. I'll present that when I'm presenting the Success Magazine and EXP edifying my company. This is edifying me. So it may be articles about me, it may be awards, it could be past sales, like a book of past sales, it could be several things. But it's something I don't leave with them. I take it back with me. So I put the listing agreement on the back side of that. So it's not buried in there. It's very visible. And when I'm done showing them this folder, I go, and I brought the listing agreement with me. And then that is left face up.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
You bet. It's amazing. As soon as you lay that on the desk, their heads turn, they look at it. They're trying to see what price you told them. They're trying to see your commission. They're trying to see all that. And mine's blank. We haven't talked about it yet, but many times they focus on that document because they could tell it's a listing agreement.
So when it comes to commission, how does that conversation go for you?
So my style has changed over the years. What I do now is I say I have 3 tiers of commission, and I summarize them. I go, we could do 4.5% commission. So I'm aggressive in front of other agents that might be discounting commission. I say we have a 4.5% commission, which is basically our bare bones. It's our silver package. It includes professional photos and the MLS, but beyond that, not an incredible amount of marketing. It's for the value conscious seller, that's really looking at the bottom line. And by the way, with that 4.5, we give 2.5 to the MLS and only 2 to us. So we're the low man on the totem pole in commission on this one. right? But it's about you. We're trying to help you. Our second commission is 5.5, where we do 2.5 to the MLS, and then we get 3 because we go above and beyond with our marketing. We go above and beyond with our professional photography. We do full Matterport of the home, which is very important. We log all kinds of videos and YouTube videos and aerial drone footage. All that stuff goes into the MLS. It uploads to Zillow and Realtor.com, and it's our gold standard basically. So we have silver, 4.5. We have our gold standard, which is 5.5. And we have our platinum, which is 6.5. And that's not for everybody, but that's for the person that literally wants turnkey. We bring a handyman and a painter in the house for 8 hours. We bring in a contractor that fixes things that are going to help the sale of the home. We bring in staging companies and they stage and remove clutter. All this is included. And that's our platinum package. And that's at 6.5%, 2.5 to the MLS, 4.5 to us, or you can do it 3 to the MLS, 3.5 to you, whatever you want to do. That's how I get over it. And then I just say, which package are you leaning towards? Because it gets out of the, well, will you do it for 4, or will you do it for 5, or will you do it for whatever? And in my opinion, it's better to give them some parameters, but don't just go out and do this because it sounds great right now. Stay with what you're focused on and what you're doing. But typically 5% is very, very common. In Portland, 4% is very, very common. So we're seeing in Portland, 2% to the listing agent, 2% to the MLS, very prevalent. And so you gotta be at least willing to talk about that and combat that in the conversation.
That's actually kind of what I'm doing. I only had 2 tiers though, but I like it.
Yeah. And so my third tier is made to be ridiculous. My third tier is like, it was 5, 6, and 7. And because in Oregon, we're getting so much commission compression off of 5% that I wanted to get in front of it. And so we do a 4.5%, which I'm happy to do, by the way. If all I have to do is take pictures and throw it on the MLS and stuff, and that's what they're looking for. And they can always upgrade later. They can't go backwards without compensating, but they could always upgrade, right? So it's a great closing conversation. But the reality is the platinum is made to be for the very astute seller, wants nothing to do with anything, that we're going to handle everything. We're treating it like a property management. We're going to go in there, hire the contractors. We're going to pay for the contractors. By the way, 6.5%, they pay 1% upfront. So they compensate me 1% of the sales price, which 20 grand on a $2 million property, right? That's to pay for the staging companies, the painters, the contractors. And it's not unlimited, but it's a hell of a package. You get a painter to come in for 8 hours in a day, a painting crew. So they could paint 2 or 3 rooms. They could paint all the trim on the house. They could almost paint an exterior, right, in a day. Contractors, same thing. They'll come in and they'll adjust things, change out dishwashers, whatever you want to have done. That's all part of this package. And it's meant to be just that. It's meant to be for that distinguished seller that just doesn't have the time to deal with anything. And it's only available in our luxury higher ends. Staging is 1% of the listing. So staging automatically could cost you, a significant amount of money. $2 million, it's 20% for staging, between 0.5% and 1%. So those things come into play when you're looking at those larger listings.
So for the repairs, do they actually pay for the repairs? You just coordinate, or do you pay for the repairs?
Yeah, so we take 1% up front for all the repairs and all the contractors and all the staging and stuff. And again, that's negotiable. So if they go, well, we don't need staging, but we want all this other stuff, yeah, we'll do it for 0.5%. And we do that in advance. And then thanks, Kenny. And then we're on the same page. They're basically paying me to get all this stuff done for them, and that's legal. You could charge accordingly. And I have a blessing that I have a construction company, so it's easy to separate that for me. But you could just treat it as such. Just say, hey, we're going to charge you the hard costs of all the painters and contractors and things. It's going to come off that extra 1%, and you'll pay only what we pay. For an example, or you could say, you'll pay exactly what I pay minus a $2,500 management fee, and that stuff is legal, as long as it's all in writing and done correctly. You can't be paid anything directly from a seller. It has to go through title and escrow. But again, say it's say it's 20 grand, that could go into escrow. We could submit bills. It's in an escrow account. It's just math when it comes all down to it. And the broker will be paid, not you, right? So escrow can be the holder of that deposit and of that down payment. You don't ever want to hold funds or receive funds directly unless you have a construction company where it's a valid arm's length separate situation. Anything else?
Do you
Okay.
ask if you had other realtors before you, do you ask them what those realtors estimated when it comes to value, or try to get any information about
Of
that?
course. Absolutely. Only after I give them my price. But you'll notice my price is, and it's labeled directly in the CMA. But I'm going to show you what I did. And I wrote, it was on page, I wrote in the CMA so I could find it easily. It's on page, I think it was 53. Let me look. Yeah, so there's my pricing in this particular house. You see how big of a parameter that is? That's a big parameter because I haven't been there yet. So I have to give myself a lot of bandwidth parameter wise. So this particular parameter, it's, you know, if you're looking at 2 million, it's about 10% either direction of where I think the target is. And that's a big parameter. So again, this is just off comparables, and there's not a lot of comparables. So it was easy to come up with a big parameter. But the reality is, once I give them that parameter, then I'll say, what did the other agents tell you? You know, what are they charging? What was their suggested price? The challenge with giving a specific, like I suggest 1.699. The problem with that is if 3 other realtors said 1.7999, you lose that listing. And if 2 other realtors said 1.4999 and you put it in writing, you lose that listing. So I like having a parameter that I could talk about and find out now what their motivation is and what are the other components that make a difference to it.
Cool. Yeah, I have a lot of unique prices right here, and it's really hard to find comparables. And the hardest part is adjustments. I mean, I've seen a $350,000 view.
Yeah. And for you, you have a lot of adjustments with views. You have a lot of adjustments for rain lines, you know, the banana belt, or you get up to certain levels, rains every day, and all that stuff. I think you have to adjust. And so when you get into those kind of things, you have to go off of your experience and gut, and sometimes the data doesn't do enough. All right. Well, we're at the end of our half hour. I really appreciate you guys being here today. Excited to go on the appointment here. I'm going to be leaving in a few minutes. I'll let you know how that goes. And, you know, that's what it's all about. Training you to be the best you can be in your production-based business. And again, I'm not the best of this in the world. I'm just showing you how I do it, what my style is. And I've been successful. I went on 98 listing appointments one year, took 96 of them, 95 or 96 of them. So it was in the high 99% category. So we've had a system that works very well for us. The big thing is taking enough time to drive the neighborhoods and drive around as you're going there. So I'll be at least 30 to 45 minutes early to make sure I drive by a couple of the local comps and just get a feel for it and make sure that I'm doing the best I can for them. And let them know that, hey, I drove around the corner, there's construction over there. What is that? Or, hey, about a mile over, I noticed that this is going on. Well, that was something, they have that knowledge, but you want to make sure that you understand that stuff. Okay. All right. Anyway, have a great day.
Thank you. Good
Randy
luck.
Byrd, thank you. I appreciate you. Thanks for being here, and have an amazing day. I'll see you next week. All right, guys, have a good one. Thank you much. Bye.